Welcome to the Minnesota Brownfields online resource on liability assurances offered by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's Brownfields programs. Minnesota was the first state to address, through statutes, the liability and technical issues associated with buying, selling, or developing property contaminated by hazardous substances. There are a number of barriers to brownfield redevelopment, so programs established by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency offer resources to participants in property transactions for the assessment of technical issues that are part of the investigation and cleanup of property. Furthermore, the potential for liability often makes it necessary for owners of contaminated property and other participants in property transactions, such as buyers, developers, and their financial institutions, to determine the extent and character of contamination. So the MPCA's programs also have participants in property transactions through liability assurances. In particular, the MPCA offers two environmental programs that assist parties who wish to purchase, investigate, and if needed, clean up a property for redevelopment: the Voluntary Investigation and Cleanup (Vig Program) and the Petroleum Brownfields (PB) program. While both programs provide technical oversight of investigation and cleanup at sites, as well as liability assurances and technical assistance, the key difference between the two is that VIC was designed for sites contaminated by hazardous substances, while PB was set up for sites contaminated by petroleum. While the Minnesota Department of Agriculture also offers a voluntary cleanup program, this program is generally aimed at the remediation of agricultural land, so this presentation will focus on the programs offered by the MPCA. Premised on the need for MPCA oversight of voluntary investigations and response actions, the MPCA's VIC program was created in 1988 to encourage the investigation, cleanup, and redevelopment of contaminated properties. Since its creation, the VIC program has overseen the return of approximately 57,000 acres of land to beneficial use and adds approximately 200 new sites per year. The key functions of the VIC program are to provide guidance for a site investigation, to provide MPCA review of the adequacy and completeness of such investigation, and to approve cleanup plans to address identified contamination. In return for voluntary investigation through ESAs and cleanup on the part of property owners and buyers, the VIC program offers a number of liability assurances. Specifically, the VIC program has developed a phased approach through which parties that participate in voluntary investigation and cleanup can obtain written MPCA assurances. The assurances offered by VIC include no association determination letters, the lender letter and the lender no association determination letter, the no action and no further action letters, the off-site source determination letter, and the certificate of completion. When a voluntary party performs actions at a brownfield site, they could become a responsible party for the contamination. The no association determination assurance provides protection from this liability by confirming that actions proposed by the voluntary party will not associate them with the identified contamination. In essence, the no association determination indicates that non-responsible parties have no liability when they follow proposed actions at a site. The lender letter and the lender no association determination letter are liability assurances that protect lenders that provide financing for or who acquire contaminated property from liability. While the lender letter discusses liability protection in general terms and does not require an environmental assessment, the lender no association determination letter references a specific contaminant release and proposed action at the property. The no action and no further action assurances are administrative liability assurances that both state that the MPCA will take no action with regard to a specific identified release of contaminants at a property and are issued if contamination is determined to not pose a significant risk to human health or the environment. The main difference between the two assurances is that the no action letter specifies a property where no response actions were necessary, while a no further action letter specifies a property where response action implementation successfully managed contamination. The off-site source determination letter is a liability assurance that indicates that groundwater contamination at a brownfield site came from an adjacent property. Given that this type of assurance requires the characterization of the type, magnitude, and source of contamination, environmental site assessments must first be conducted to demonstrate that there are no on-site sources causing or contributing to the identified groundwater contamination. The Certificate of Completion is the highest level of liability assurance offered by the VIC program and requires significant work to be done at a contaminated property in order to complete a full soil and groundwater investigation and fully characterize the extent and magnitude of releases. Once the assessment process is completed, a full Certificate of Completion requires that all known releases and cleanup be remediated in accordance with an MPCA-approved voluntary response action. Once the response action plan has been implemented and a brownfield site remediated, the certificate of completion can be issued. Switching gears, the MPCA's second brownfields program is the Petroleum Brownfields (PB) program, which is aimed at the assessment and cleanup of properties contaminated by petroleum, including gas stations, bulk plants, and railroads. Similarly to the Vig program, the PB program provides technical oversight of investigation and cleanup of brownfield sites, as well as a number of unique assurances. Given the priority of remediation of petroleum-contaminated sites, the PB program provides expedited review and approval. In all, the PB program has overseen the return of approximately 10,000 acres of land to beneficial use and adds about 250 new sites every year. The assurances offered by the PB program include the leak site tank removal verification letter, the leak site file closure confirmation letter, the off-site tank release determination letter, and the general liability letter. The tank removal verification letter simply verifies that the petroleum storage tank or tanks that cause petroleum contamination at a given property have been removed, and provides the assurance that the prospective buyer or lender will not be responsible for their release. The file closure confirmation letter is an administrative liability assurance that states that a petroleum tank release occurred at the property and that the file closure status is still valid. The off-site tank release letter requires a Phase 1 ESA and identifies an adjacent property as the source of petroleum contamination at a given contaminated property. This assurance states that the owner of the affected property is not a responsible party for the contamination. The general liability letter states the definition of a responsible party and provides the assurance that if a purchaser comes into possession of a property where previously a petroleum tank had caused contamination and that the tank or tanks had been removed already, that purchaser is not a responsible party and cannot be ordered to take corrective action. Currently, the MPCA is working to improve the accessibility and effectiveness of its brownfields programs through the use of a combined application. Other ongoing improvements include reduced hourly rates from $150 an hour to $125 per hour, more updated guidance, and the compilation of files into digitized archives online for your access. For more information on the MPCA, its brownfields programs, and the liability assurances offered, contact the MPCA Brownfield Program supervisors here.